You know that person who laughs when everyone else goes quiet? The one who cracks jokes at funerals, finds the absurdity in absolute chaos, and somehow stays calm when the world is collapsing? Yeah. They're not just funny. They've been somewhere dark. And I don't mean a rough breakup or a bad semester. I mean the kind of darkness that rewires your entire operating system. The kind that teaches you things most people will never have to learn. Let me show you what I mean. Picture this. Someone rear-ends them at a red light. Most people would lose it, right? But they're already out of the car, asking if the other driver is okay. Cracking a joke about how their bumper was ugly anyway. Not because they don't care, but because their brain has been trained to locate the nearest exit in every situation, emotional or otherwise. When you've survived your own earthquakes, other people's tremors don't register the same way. Here's what nobody talks about. People who've endured too much don't have broken brains. They have adapted brains. Brains that have been through a boot camp most people can't imagine. Their nervous system learned to operate under conditions that would short-circuit someone else entirely. And even when the danger is gone, when life is relatively stable, that system is still running, still scanning, still preparing, still bracing for the next disaster that might never come. But here's where it gets interesting. You'd assume someone who's been through hell would come out cynical, right? Hardened, closed off, expect the worst from everyone. But that's not always what happens. A lot of the time, they become some of the most empathetic people you'll ever meet. And I'm not talking about polite empathy. I'm talking about the kind that's almost invasive. They notice everything. The micropause before you answer a question. The way your smile doesn't reach your eyes. The slight change in your voice when you say, "I'm fine." They notice because they had to. Survival required fluency in a language most people don't even know exists. They can read a room like it's written in neon. Walk into a space and immediately sense tension, sadness, unspoken resentment. And I need you to hear this part clearly. It's not a superpower. It's a scar. When you grow up or live in environments where reading the emotional temperature wrong could cost you safety, your brain gets really, really good at reading it. So now they walk into a party, and instead of seeing people having fun, they see who's faking it, who's about to leave, who's one drink away from a breakdown. Most people see a gathering. They see an emotional chessboard. And then there's this thing that happens that still kind of blows my mind. Psychologists have a term for it, post-traumatic growth. I know it sounds like something someone made up to make trauma sound prettier than it is. But the research is real, and the idea is simple. Sometimes after trauma, people don't just go back. They reorganize. Not everyone. Not always. And trauma isn't a gift. But for a significant number of people, something shifts. Their relationships get deeper because they stop wasting time on surface-level nonsense. Their priorities become crystal clear because they've seen what matters when everything falls apart. And their appreciation for small, ordinary moments becomes almost ridiculous. They'll get emotional over a stranger holding a door open. Perfect cup of coffee. A sunset that everyone else walks past without looking up. They're not being dramatic. They just know how fragile good things are. But let's not romanticize this because there's a cost. A heavy one. These same people often live with something called hypervigilance, and it doesn't fully shut off. Not because they're crazy. Not because they're paranoid. Because their nervous system learned one lesson too well. Relaxation can be risky. You know that friend who always needs to sit facing the door at restaurants? Who has 17 backup plans for a simple hangout? Who checks their phone obsessively? Not because they're addicted, but because they need to know what's coming. That's not drama. That's a body that still thinks it has to stay ready. Safety isn't a given. It's something you monitor, constantly, because the moment you let your guard down is the moment everything can go sideways. And here's something that'll frustrate you once you notice it. People who've been through too much almost always downplay what they survived. Ask them about it and you'll hear the same lines. "Oh, it wasn't that bad. Other people have it way worse. I'm fine, really." It's like they've developed an allergy to being seen as a victim. And it makes sense, doesn't it? A lot of them survived by convincing themselves they were strong enough to handle it. So admitting that it actually broke something inside them can feel like going backwards, like failing. So they minimize, they deflect, they joke. Anything to avoid sitting in the reality that, yeah, it was that bad. And no, they're not completely fine. Now, this is where it gets complicated. Relationships. People who've endured too much often swing between two extremes. And sometimes they're both at the same time. Either they're intensely loyal, the kind of person who shows up at 3 in the morning without questions, who remembers every detail you've ever told them, who makes you feel like the most important person in the world. Or they're emotionally distant, hard to reach, impossible to pin down. Ask them how they're really doing and suddenly they're busy, deflecting, changing the subject. And here's the kicker. They can be both. Loyal to you, but unavailable to themselves. Why? Because closeness, real closeness, has historically been dangerous. Maybe the people who were supposed to protect them didn't. Maybe love came with conditions, with unpredictability, with consequences. So now their nervous system doesn't relax when someone gets close. Tenses. It braces. Because intimacy, in their experience, has come with a price. So they learn to be the person everyone can rely on, while making sure they don't need anyone themselves. It sounds independent. It sounds strong. But a lot of the time, it's just survival dressed up as self-sufficiency. And it's incredibly, achingly lonely. But something beautiful can emerge from all this mess. These people often get exceptionally good at adapting to change. New job? They'll figure it out. Moving to a new city alone? No problem. Entire life imploding on a random Tuesday? They've been there before. They know the drill. While other people freeze in uncertainty, they're already 3 steps ahead. Adjusting, recalibrating, surviving. Not because they're fearless, but because they learned early that change is inevitable. And resisting it only makes it hurt worse. And the humor is a whole separate thing. Dark humor, specifically. The kind that makes people uncomfortable if they don't get it. But it's not about being edgy or insensitive. It's about reclaiming power. When you can laugh at the absurdity of your own suffering, when you can turn pain into a punchline, it loses some of its control over you. Every joke is a tiny act of defiance. A way of saying, you didn't destroy me. I'm still here. And I can still find something funny in this absolute dumpster fire. Comedy becomes armor. And honestly, it's some of the sharpest, most intelligent humor you'll ever hear. Now here's a weird one. Listen closely. People who've survived too much often have this intense, contradictory relationship with control. They'll obsess over the smallest, most insignificant details. Which mug to use, what to wear, the exact route to take to work. But then something massive happens, something that would send most people spiraling, and they're weirdly calm. Why? Because they've learned the big stuff, the stuff that actually matters, is often out of their control anyway. But the small stuff, that they can manage. So they micromanage what they can. Because it gives them a little pocket of stability in a world that's proven itself to be deeply unstable. They're walking contradictions. Tough but tender. Guarded but generous. Hopeful but realistic. They've learned something most people never have to learn. That you can hold 2 opposing truths at the same time. Life can be beautiful and brutal. People can hurt you and heal you. You can be broken and still be whole. The contradiction isn't a problem to fix. It's just the reality of being human in a world that's never entirely safe, or entirely dangerous. But here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. Underneath all of the strength and the humor and the hypercompetence, there's grief. Not just the grief of losing someone, though that might be part of it. The grief of losing themselves. They grieve the version of them that trusted easily. The version that laughed without scanning the room first. The version that didn't rehearse every conversation or anticipate danger in every silence. They grieve the lightness they used to carry. The version of themselves that didn't flinch at raised voices. Didn't overthink every text message. Didn't feel like they were too much or not enough depending on the day. How do you explain that you're homesick for a version of yourself you barely remember? That you miss a sense of safety you're not even sure you ever had? That sometimes you look at people who move through the world with ease and you feel this ache. Not jealousy exactly. Just a deep sadness for the softness you didn't get to keep. the freedom you learned about too late, this grief doesn't break them, but it shapes them. It makes them quieter, more intentional, more careful about who they let in. It turns them into someone who cherishes peace, because they know exactly what chaos costs. And maybe that's the real psychology here. People who've been through too much don't just survive. They develop this complex, layered understanding of what it means to be human. They know strength isn't about never breaking. It's about how many times you can put yourself back together, even when the pieces don't fit the same way anymore. Even when some parts are missing. Even when the shape of you is different now. Their survival became insight. Their pain became compassion. And their trauma became a lens. One that makes them see the world more clearly, more honestly, more deeply than most people ever will. And without even trying, without even noticing, they became something rare. A lighthouse, not because their life was easy, not because they're perfect or healed or over it, but because they learned to navigate storms that would have drowned other people. And now, whether they realize it or not, their light helps others find their way through the dark. A lighthouse doesn't shine because everything's fine. It shines because it remembers what the darkness feels like. So the next time you meet someone who's a little too comfortable with chaos, who laughs at things that should hurt, who stays impossibly calm in the middle of disaster, just know they didn't come by that easily. Every joke, every boundary, every moment of unexpected wisdom, they earned it. They've been through too much, and somehow they're still here, still trying, still finding reasons to hope, still showing up. That's not just psychology. That's resilience most people will never have to develop. And honestly, that's something worth noticing. And if this hit home, if you felt seen, subscribe. This channel exists to explain human behavior in ways that actually make sense. No jargón. No academic distance. Just real talk about why we are the way we are. And if you want to support more of these deep dives into the messy, complicated reality of being human, hit that join button to become a channel member. I genuinely appreciate you being here. More videos are coming, and I think they're going to resonate with you. Thanks for listening.